Black Widow is finally out, which means it's time to update my MCU ranking. Coming at last place is Thor the Dark World. Nothing happens in this movie. The villain is stupid. It's boring. Loki is really the only good thing about this movie. Number 23, Incredible Hulk. Again, nothing happens. Bruce isn't even Hulk for like 90% of the movie, and it just feels so disconnected from the MCU. Number 22, Captain Marvel. The character is terribly written, the actress is unlikable, the story isn't that great, it just feels like a watered-down, less version of Guardians of the Galaxy, and they turned Nick Fury into a total joke. Number 21, Iron Man 2. There's way too much going on in this movie. It just feels like a tide over to set up for Avengers. Tony isn't even really the star of his own movie. Most of it is about Black Widow and War Machine. Number 20, Thor. The story's just kind of okay, though it does have its fun moments. Tom Hiddleston, of course, is great as Loki, and there are a few laughs with Thor being a fish out of water, but the film isn't really all that memorable. Number 19, Iron Man 3. I'm one of the few defenders of this film. I'm fine with the Mandarin twist because the idea is they're using this moron as the fall guy while other people are doing the work in the shadows, which plays into the Hydra shield twist of Winter Soldier, so I'm fine with it. Number 18, Age of Ultron. James Spader is great as Ultron. This movie gave us Scarlet Witch, but the stakes in this movie aren't as high as the first one, and it's not nearly as fast-paced, and that's where it falls short. Number 17, Black Panther. The lead actor is very likable, and the character is very cool, but the story has a lot of issues. The opening scene, they're so distrustful of each other that they send a spy to spy on the spy, and they don't choose their leaders based on who's best for the people, but who's the strongest in combat. And the end where they're going to open the borders to show everyone a better way, you just had a war in your own country amongst yourselves. There are fun moments like car chases and spy film elements, but the story has a lot of issues. Number 16, Doctor Strange. Benedict Cumberbatch is perfectly cast, and it has a good story, but the villain is just kind of run-of-the-mill. The script is witty and philosophical, and I enjoy it, just not as much as some of the other films on this list. Number 15, Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2. My big problem is it's a lot crasser than the original, and also it used humor at times there didn't need to be any. There were moments that should have had more weight, but instead of letting the weight of the moment sink in, let's make a joke. Number 14, Iron Man. I personally am not a fan of the character, but it is a well-written, well-directed movie. After all these years, it's one of the only Phase 1 movies that still holds up. Number 13, Guardians of the Galaxy. The cast works very well off each other, the soundtrack works well in scenes, it's a delightfully weird and creative movie. Number 12, Thor Ragnarok. The good Thor movie. It's funny, it has a good story, but it feels like it's trying too much to be Guardians of the Galaxy, and I also don't really like Valkyrie that much. She comes off as very annoying to me. Number 11, Ant-Man. One of the funniest and most fun MCU movies. Paul Rudd and Michael Pena are the stand-up performances here. It's a laugh-a-minute film with plenty of creative ideas, but it feels a little bit too much like Iron Man 1. Number 10, Spider-Man Far From Home. A great epilogue to Endgame where we explore what happens after Peter's chosen to replace Iron Man. Unfortunately, there are a few moments that leave a bad taste in my mouth. For one, they chose a name for the Spidey sense that's a bit vulgar and belongs more in a movie like Deadpool, and there's also a scene where this adult S.H.I.E.L.D. agent is telling Peter to take off his clothes. Yes, it's so he can put on a new supersuit, but this is still an adult woman saying this to a teenage boy. Ugh. It has good twists, but the script needed a bit of cleaning. Number 9, Spider-Man Homecoming. Michael Keaton is great as the villain. Tom Holland is fantastic in his first solo outing in the MCU. It feels like an 80s high school movie, but it relies a little bit too much on Iron Man. Number 8, Ant-Man and the Wasp. The two leads work very well off of each other, but the story feels a little bit rehashed from part 1. Number 7, Captain America, the First Avenger. A fantastic period piece superhero film set in World War II with a very well-written main character, heart, humor, and a fantastic story. Number 6, The Avengers. The payoff to 5 previous films of build-up. The whole cast keeps up with each other very well. It has sharp writing, good action, and is one of the best comic book movies ever. Number 5, Captain America Civil War. This film is awesome, but for a film with Captain America's name in the title, it feels less like a Captain America movie and more like an Avengers movie. Zemo as the villain feels unnecessary because he doesn't really do much in the film. This did give us Tom Holland as Spider-Man, but there's an issue I have with the way they did it. Aunt May lets Tony Stark, an adult man she doesn't know, alone in her teenage son's bedroom, And said adult man then tells Peter to lie to her about where he's going alone with him. May is a terrible guardian. Also, thanks to Endgame, Cap is now kissing his niece in this movie. This does have one of the best fight scenes in the MCU, though. Number 4, Black Widow. A fun political intrigue spy movie with a great cast, a fantastic, absolutely despicable villain, well-directed action. It was well worth the long wait. Number 3, Captain America, the Winter Soldier. Much like Black Widow, it's also a very compelling political thriller. Cap and Black Widow have great chemistry, and this film is actually the reason I ship them. It has a great villain, and there's really nothing wrong with this movie. I don't have any issues with it. Number 2, Endgame. An almost perfect film. Cap lifting Mjolnir is one of my all-time favorite scenes in the MCU, and for the most part, I don't have any issues with it, but the film is not perfect. There are still some very contrived plot points, such as all the female heroes are on this very big planet, and they all just happen to be in the same place at the same time on this giant planet with millions of people, but all the female characters just happen to be in the exact same spot at the exact same time. It's very contrived. And the end of the movie with Captain America ending up with Peggy means that in Civil War, as I established earlier, he's kissing his niece. But other than that, the film was very satisfying. But number 1, Avengers Infinity War. High stakes with a well-written, well-acted villain. The entire cast works off each other perfectly. Considering this movie has about 50-odd characters, it really should not have worked. It really should have felt bogged down, but it doesn't. The story flows very naturally, even if it does feel like we're going from place to place to place, much like a video game. But it's very easy to follow. It has one of the best battles of the MCU, and one of the most daring, bold, shocking endings of any superhero movie ever, so it comes in at number 1. So go ahead and share your ranking of the MCU down below, and I will see you next time.